remember. This particular event here is slalom. It's probably the closest thing on water you're likely to get to show jumping. It began on the continent in 1929, and it's exactly half a century since the first British slalom.
Here in BSG, the 1989 Slalom Championships attracted 60 participants in a competition which involves racing alone against the clock. The paddler has to complete a course of numbered gates, negotiating them from different directions. Green and white poles indicate a downstream approach, red and white upstream. If you hit one of the gates, approach it from the wrong direction, or miss it altogether, then you're penalised with seconds added to your overall time.
What you're trying to make the paddlers do is use the water that's there, to use the eddies and use the waves. So by putting the gates on either side of a wave, you make the paddlers use the wave to paddle across.
The boats used fall into two categories, the kayak and the canoe.
The difference between the two boats then basically is this, it stems from where they came from. The normal canoe that people understand is a derivative of an Eskimo kayak, which is a sea boat, and of course the sea being very rough naturally required the paddler to have support on both sides of the boat. So they paddle with a paddle shaft that has a blade at each end. The canoes, however, came from the lake and were the ones exemplified by Hiawatha and the American Indians, where you saw him sat at the back with one paddle, lazily paddling along. And of course, that is what a canoe really is.
Today, slalom courses put both canoe and kayak into exactly the same environment, one which can pose risks for the paddler.
We've had a number of accidents over the past 10 or so years involving soldiers on weirs, and hopefully the soldiers are now becoming more educated, or in particular the instructors, on weir safety.
In slalom, a competitor must be prepared to rescue another competitor if he's in difficulty. Crash helmets and buoyancy aids are compulsory, which all adds to the cost of the sport.
Well, it costs about £300 for a boat, £25 or so for a buoyancy aid. You'll be paying £50 or even more for a paddle. A helmet will cost you somewhere in the region between £8 for the very cheapest, or up to about £30 for an expensive one. And a spray cover will cost you somewhere around £30.
It has to be said that slalom isn't a spectator sport, but for the competitor it provides a challenging test of skill and ability to paddle at speed over a given course in a minimum time. And to do that well requires training.
I run daily at least 10 Ks just to keep the lungs and the heart ticking over at my advancing years. Weight training is important as well, particularly in the upper body, although it's not essential. And then, of course, pure boat time, 2 or 3 hours a day is not uncommon.
The effort put in by most BSG canoeists is considerable, their enthusiasm undeniable, so it's perhaps a shame that interest in slalom is on the wane. This year in Hildesheim there were no women competitors to be seen, and numbers generally were said to be down on previous years.
It's a shame because a lot of the competitors here are novices, and I feel the people who aren't coming are people who think we don't do competition, and so if we turn up we're going to get crushed.
In fact, soon we won't need a distribution list, we'll know each other's phone number.
And if you're interested in trying your hand at slalom, then get in touch with your unit canoeing officer or adventurous training officer. Finally, a quick look ahead. Next Tuesday,